I have something beautiful to share with everyone, my sister Emma announced, standing up in the middle of my wedding vows, her white dress catching the afternoon light streaming through the church windows. Marcus and I are having a baby, and he wants to propose right here, right now. The gasps from our 200 guests echoed through St. Michael's Cathedral as Marcus dropped to one knee in the aisle, pulling out a ring box. My name is Sarah Collins. I'm 28 years old, and I work as a pediatric nurse at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Until that moment, 3:47 p.m. on October 14th, I was having the perfect wedding to my fiancé David, a construction engineer I'd been with for 6 years. We'd planned everything meticulously, saved for 2 years, and invited everyone we loved to witness our vows. Everyone except my sister Emma, who apparently had other plans. I stood there in my grandmother's vintage lace dress, holding David's hands, watching my younger sister steal my wedding day with the kind of calculated cruelty that only family can deliver. The photographer kept snapping pictures, probably thinking this was some beautiful family moment. The guests were split between excitement for Emma and confusion about the timing. My mother was crying, whether from joy or horror I couldn't tell. I should have been furious, should have screamed, thrown my bouquet, demanded she leave. Instead, I smiled serenely and said, "How wonderful, Emma. Before we celebrate your news, I have something to share too." The thing about being a pediatric nurse is that you learn to stay calm in crisis situations. You document everything. You think before you act, and you always verify your facts before making life-changing decisions. Over the past 8 months, I'd been documenting plenty about my sister Emma. Emma and I grew up in Haddonfield, New Jersey, where our father owned a successful accounting firm and our mother managed the local library. Emma was 3 years younger, always the dramatic one, always needing to be the center of attention. During my high school graduation, she accidentally cut her hand and needed stitches, stealing focus from my valedictorian speech. When I got into nursing school, she suddenly decided she wanted to be a nurse too, though she dropped out after 1 semester. She'd been dating Marcus Chen for 8 months, a nice guy who worked in tech and genuinely seemed to love her. What Marcus didn't know was that Emma had also been seeing Jake Morrison, a married contractor from South Jersey, and occasionally hooking up with her ex-boyfriend Tyler whenever he was in town from college. I knew because I'd seen the text messages. It started innocently enough. Last Christmas, Emma left her phone on my kitchen counter while she helped Mom with dinner. It buzzed with a text from Jake, saying, "Can't wait for tomorrow. Night, baby." I didn't think much of it until I remembered Marcus mentioning he'd be working late the next day. Being a nurse means you notice patterns, inconsistencies, symptoms that don't quite fit. Over the following months, I started noticing Emma's patterns. The girls' nights that happened exactly when Marcus worked late. The sudden affection for hiking, which lined up perfectly with Jake Morrison's Instagram posts from various trails. The way she'd disappear during family gatherings to take important calls. I didn't go looking for evidence, but when you live 30 minutes apart and share the same friend groups, information has a way of surfacing. Sarah Thompson, who works with me at the hospital, mentioned seeing Emma with some guy who definitely wasn't Marcus at a restaurant in Camden. My cousin Julie saw her coming out of a motel with a different man entirely. The pregnancy announcement came 3 weeks before my wedding. Emma called, crying, saying she was terrified to tell Marcus because they'd only been together 8 months. She begged me not to say anything until after my wedding, not wanting to steal my thunder. I agreed, thinking she was being considerate for once. I should have known better. 2 weeks later, my friend Jessica mentioned seeing Emma at a Planned Parenthood clinic, not for prenatal care, but coming out of the testing center looking really shaken. When I called Emma that night to check on her, she lied smoothly about being at the doctor's office for a routine checkup. That's when I realized Emma wasn't just pregnant. She had no idea who the father was. I started paying closer attention. I noticed that Emma's morning sickness seemed to come and go based on her audience. She'd be fine at work, but suddenly nauseous around Marcus. She'd posted about craving sushi and wine on social media, then quickly deleted the posts. The final piece fell into place 5 days before my wedding. Emma asked to borrow my car because hers was making weird noises. I said yes, but I also checked the GPS history when she returned it. She'd driven to a law office in Cherry Hill that specialized in paternity cases. I called the office, pretending to be Emma, saying I needed to reschedule my appointment. The receptionist cheerfully confirmed my paternity test consultation for October 18th, just 4 days after my wedding. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with a cup of tea and my laptop, feeling something cold settle in my chest. Not anger, something more clinical, more focused. Emma wasn't just pregnant with uncertain paternity. She was planning to use my wedding as the perfect announcement platform, probably hoping the chaos would distract from any awkward questions about timing. She wanted attention, drama, and a memorable proposal story to tell for years. What she didn't know was that I'd spent 8 months unwillingly becoming an expert on her love life. The morning of my wedding, Emma showed up for hair and makeup wearing a white dress. Not ivory, not cream, pure white silk that could have been a wedding dress itself. When my maid of honor, Katie, pointed this out, Emma laughed it off. "It's not like I'm the bride," she said, adjusting the sweetheart neckline. "Besides, Sarah won't mind. She's never been the jealous type." She was right about that. I wasn't jealous. I was something much more dangerous. I was prepared. During the ceremony, as Father Rodriguez led us through our vows, I watched Emma in my peripheral vision. She kept checking her phone, whispering to Marcus, clearly building up to something. When the priest asked if anyone had any reason why David and I should not be wed, she actually started to stand up before Marcus pulled her back down. Then came my vows. I was halfway through promising David my devotion when Emma couldn't contain herself any longer. "I have something beautiful to share with everyone," she announced, rising from her pew like some kind of pregnancy angel. The white dress made her look almost bridal as she beamed at the shocked congregation. "Marcus and I are having a baby, and he wants to propose right here, right now." Marcus, clearly having been coached for this moment, dropped to one knee in the church aisle. "Emma Chen has a nice ring to it," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear. The collective gasp from our guests was audible. Several people started clapping. My mother looked like she might faint. I watched this circus for exactly 30 seconds. Then I smiled and spoke clearly into the microphone Father Rodriguez had been using. "How wonderful, Emma," I said, my voice carrying easily through the church's sound system. "Before we celebrate your news, I have something to share too." The church fell silent. David squeezed my hands, understanding immediately that I had this under control. "Emma, could you tell everyone how far along?" "You are?" I asked sweetly. Emma's smile faltered slightly, but she recovered quickly. 12 weeks, she said proudly. "We wanted to wait until the second trimester to be safe." 12 weeks, I repeated thoughtfully. "That's interesting timing. Marcus, that would put conception around July 24th, wouldn't it?" Marcus nodded enthusiastically, clearly doing math in his head. "Yeah, that sounds about right." "Wonderful," I continued, still smiling. "Emma, would you like to tell Marcus about your hiking trip that weekend with Jake Morrison? Or should I mention your overnight stay at the Marriott in Camden with Tyler Rodriguez on July 22nd? The color drained from Emma's face. Marcus's expression shifted from joy to confusion. The congregation, which had been preparing to celebrate, was now dead silent. "Sarah, what are you—" Emma started. "Oh, I'm sorry," I interrupted, my voice still saccharine sweet. "Should I not mention the paternity test consultation you scheduled for October 18th? I'm sure that's just routine prenatal care." Marcus stood up slowly, the ring box still in his hand. "Paternity test?" he said quietly. Emma's mouth opened and closed like a fish. For once in her life, my dramatic sister was speechless. "You know what, Emma?" I continued, feeling a strange calm wash over me. "Since you wanted to share news during my wedding, let me help you be completely honest with everyone." I reached into my bouquet and pulled out my phone, where I'd saved screenshots of text messages Jessica had sent me the night before. Emma, drunk at her bachelorette party, had confessed to Jessica about her complicated situation. "According to your own words from last night," I read aloud. You're not sure if the baby is Marcus's, Jake's, or Tyler's, but Marcus is the only one with money, so it's probably better if it's his. The silence in the church was deafening. Marcus dropped the ring box, the sound of it hitting the marble floor echoing through the cathedral. Emma's white dress suddenly looked less like bridal elegance and more like a surrender flag. "Sarah, you can't," Emma whispered. "Can't what?" I asked. "Can't tell the truth at my own wedding? The wedding you decided to hijack for your performance?" Marcus looked between Emma and me, his face cycling through emotions. "Is this true?" he asked Emma quietly. Emma started crying, but they weren't the pretty tears of a radiant mother-to-be. These were the messy, desperate sobs of someone whose lies had just exploded in front of 200 people. "Marcus, I can explain," she gasped. "Explain what?" he said, his voice getting louder. "Explain how you don't know if your baby is mine? Explain how you've been sleeping with multiple guys while we've been together? Explain how you were going to let me propose at your sister's wedding without knowing if I'm even the father?" The congregation was riveted. Several people had their phones out, recording. In the front row, our father sat with his head in his hands. Our mother was openly weeping. Marcus turned to address the crowd. "I'm sorry, everyone. There's obviously not going to be a proposal today." He looked at Emma one more time. "There's not going to be anything. We're done." He walked out of the church, leaving Emma standing alone in her white dress, sobbing in front of everyone we knew. Emma tried to follow him, but her heel caught in the dress hem and she stumbled. As she gathered herself up, she turned to me with pure venom in her eyes. "You ruined everything!" she screamed. "You ruined my life!" "No, Emma," I said calmly, handing my bouquet to Katie and taking David's arm. "You ruined your own life. I just stopped you from ruining Marcus's too." Father Rodriguez, who had been standing in shocked silence, cleared his throat. "Perhaps we should continue with the ceremony?" I looked at David, who nodded with a small smile. "I'd like that very much," I said. Emma was escorted out by our Uncle Pete, still sobbing hysterically. The congregation settled back into their seats, and we continued with our vows as if nothing had happened. Later, at the reception, several guests approached me to say they'd never seen anything like that. My cousin Rachel called it the most savage thing she'd ever witnessed. Our family friend Mrs. Patterson said I'd handled it with more grace than Emma deserved. The truth was, I felt no satisfaction in humiliating Emma, but I also felt no guilt. She'd made her choices, and I'd simply ensured Marcus knew what those choices were before making the biggest mistake of his life. 3 days after the wedding, Emma called crying, begging me to tell Marcus she'd lied about the other men, that she'd made up the paternity confusion to test his commitment. I listened to her entire sob story, then said, "Emma, I have to get back to work. Some of us have jobs to maintain." The paternity test Emma had scheduled revealed what everyone already suspected. Marcus wasn't the father. Neither was Tyler. Jake Morrison, the married contractor, was the biological father of Emma's baby. Emma tried reaching out to Jake, hoping he'd leave his wife for her. He blocked her number after one conversation. Tyler, when she contacted him, reminded her that he'd used protection every time they were together and suggested she get her story straight. Within 2 months, Emma had moved back in with our parents. She gave birth to a beautiful baby girl named Sophie in April. Jake Morrison wanted nothing to do with either of them, and Marcus had already started dating someone new, a kindergarten teacher who, according to his social media, appreciated honesty and loyalty. Emma eventually got a job at a local daycare and started rebuilding her life as a single mother. She never apologized for trying to hijack my wedding, but she never attempted anything like it again either. At family gatherings, we maintained polite civility for Sophie's sake. Emma would make small talk about work and parenting, and I'd share stories from the hospital. We never discussed Marcus, the wedding, or the choices that led us to this new normal. Our mother occasionally brought up the idea of family counseling, suggesting we work through our issues. I always declined politely. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. They're meant to serve as reminders of what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. David and I celebrated our first anniversary with a quiet dinner at the restaurant, where we'd had our first date. During dessert, he raised his glass and said, "Here's to marrying someone who always tells the truth, even when it's hard." I thought about Emma, probably at home with baby Sophie, living with the consequences of valuing drama over honesty, attention over integrity. I thought about Marcus, who dodged a lifetime of uncertainty and manipulation. I thought about myself, who'd learned that sometimes the kindest thing you can do is refuse to enable someone's lies. To truth, I agreed, touching my glass to his. 6 months later, I ran into Marcus at a coffee shop near the hospital. He was with his new girlfriend, both of them laughing over something on her phone. When he saw me, he approached and asked if we could talk privately. "I never thanked you," he said once we were alone. "For what you did at, the wedding?" I was furious at the time, but you saved me from making the biggest mistake of my life. "I'm glad you're happy," I said, and I meant it. "Are you and Emma?" he started. "We're family," I replied, "but we're not friends, and that's okay." He nodded, understanding. "Take care of yourself, Sarah." As I watched him return to his girlfriend, I realized that revenge isn't always about punishment. Sometimes it's about prevention, stopping good people from getting hurt by those who would use their kindness against them. Emma had wanted to steal my wedding day, to make it about her drama and chaos. Instead, she'd given me something much more valuable, the knowledge that I could protect the people I cared about while staying true to my own values. That night, I called my supervisor at the hospital and put in for extra shifts in the NICU. Caring for premature babies requires patience, precision, and the ability to stay calm under pressure, skills I'd clearly mastered in more ways than one. Some people might say I was cruel to humiliate Emma in front of our entire family and social circle, but I'd learned that kindness without boundaries isn't kindness at all. It's enabling. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to let someone destroy themselves and others in the process. Emma had taught me that family doesn't mean you have to accept toxic behavior. Marcus had taught me that good people deserve protection from manipulation. And David had taught me that a partnership built on honesty and respect can weather any storm. As for Emma's white dress, our mother had it professionally cleaned and stored in the attic, thinking Emma might want to wear it for a future wedding. I suggested she donate it to a charity shop instead. After all, some things are better left in the past.